A truck crash isn't just a bad accident, it's a legal ambush. While you're in pain and trying to get answers, the trucking company already has lawyers, insurers, and investigators shaping their version of the events. And unless you know what to look for in the driver, the truck, and the company, they'll get away with it. This video shows you the safety rules they were supposed to follow and the evidence that proves when they didn't. Because if you wait too long, that proof disappears, and so does your case. Hi, I'm Mama Justice, and I've been helping people in this same situation for many years. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you what safety protocols matter most, what evidence reveals the truth, and the red flags trucking companies did not do their job safely. A truck crash is not like a typical fender bender. A fully loaded tractor trailer can weigh many times more than a passenger vehicle. When something goes wrong, the damage is bigger, the injuries are more serious, and the recovery can take a whole lot longer. That is exactly why commercial trucking is regulated so heavily. There are federal safety rules for hours of service, maintenance, driver qualifications, cargo securement, and drug and alcohol testing. These are not optional. And here's the part most people do not realize until it's too late. In the first day or two after a serious truck crash, the trucking company is already working on its version of the events. They may have their insurer involved, they may have investigators, they may have lawyers. Meanwhile, you are dealing with pain, towing, missed work, and medical appointments. That imbalance is why knowing what to look for really matters. Let me give you a few things you can notice immediately, even before an attorney gets involved. As long as you can do it safely, look at the condition of the truck. Are the tires worn or blown? Did you see any obvious mechanical issues like dangling parts, leaking fluid, or signs the trailer was not stable? Look at the driver. Do they seem exhausted, confused, or like they're having trouble tracking the conversation? Fatigue is one of the biggest issues we see in trucking crashes. Look at the load. Is the cargo spilled? Is the trailer leaning? Are there signs that it was overloaded or unbalanced? And document everything you can with your phone. Wide photos that show the whole scene. Then close-ups of the damage, tires, placards, license plates, skid marks, debris, and the entire roadway. If you only take 5 pictures, you will regret it later. Also, Mississippi law requires a certain action after a crash. For example, Mississippi Code Section 63411 requires immediate notice to a law enforcement when a crash involves an injury or a death, or apparent total property damage in excess of $500. And Mississippi Code Section 633405 requires drivers to give identifying information and render reasonable assistance to people injured. When we investigate whether safety protocols were followed, we usually think in 3 categories: the driver, the truck, and the company. Because even if the driver made the final mistake, the company may have set them up to fail by pushing deadlines, skipping the maintenance, or hiring the wrong person. Now let me walk you through the key safety protocols and what evidence proves whether they were followed or not. Fatigue is a silent killer in trucking. Federal hours of service rules limit how long a property-carrying driver can drive, including an 11-hour driving limit within a 14-hour work window after 10 consecutive hours off duty. Here's what matters for you. The rules are not just about the driver. The regulation also says a motor carrier cannot permit or require the driver to violate these limits. So how do you know if fatigue rules were followed? We look at the driver's logs and the electronic logging device data, sometimes called ELD data. We compare it to reality. Reality leaves a trail. Dispatch instructions, GPS history, fuel receipts, toll records, weigh station timestamps, delivery appointment times, driver messages and communication. If the logbook says the driver was resting, but the truck was moving, that's a problem. If the company scheduled a run that practically required illegal driving time to meet the deadline, that's a problem. And this is why acting fast matters. Those records are controlled by the trucking company. The next bucket is maintenance. Truck crashes are often caused by preventable mechanical issues. Brakes, tires, steering components, lights, coupling equipment, and more. Federal regulations require motor carriers to systematically inspect, repair, and maintain vehicles under their control, and they must keep maintenance records that document inspections, repairs, and upkeep. So what do we request? Everything: inspection records, repair invoices, brake service records, tire replacement history, annual inspection documents, driver vehicle inspection reports, records showing what was flagged and when it was fixed. Then we compare those records to the condition of the truck after the crash. If a tire failed and the tread was worn down, we want to see when it was last inspected and whether it should have been replaced. If brakes failed, we want to see brake adjustment history and repair notes. One of the most common patterns we see is a paper that looks clean, but the physical evidence tells a very different story. This is why photos from the scene can matter so much. This is where a lot of trucking companies get exposed. The question is not just, did the driver have a CDL? The question is, should they have been on the road for this company at all? Federal rules require motor carriers to maintain a driver qualification file for each driver they employ. And those files must include specific documents like applications, driving records, and medical certification information. So we look for these: prior crashes and violations, license status and history, medical qualification documentation, training records, road test or equivalent certification, disciplinary history, previous employer inquiries. If this company skipped background checks, ignored warning signs, or failed to train the driver properly, that can point to negligent hiring, negligent training, or negligent supervision. And here's the key: juries and insurers tend to react very differently to a mistake versus a pattern. A pattern shows a safety culture problem. Improper loading can turn a normal braking event into a catastrophe. Cargo that is overloaded, unbalanced, or not secure can shift, jackknife, or even increase stopping distance. Federal cargo securement rules live in the FMCSA framework, including requirements that require cargo to be secured using proper devices and systems. To check this, we look for bills of lading and weight tickets, load diagrams if they exist, securement and documentation, shipper and loader communications, photos of the trailer and cargo after the crash, any citations related to weight or securement. Sometimes the trucking company blames the shipper. Sometimes the shipper blames the carrier. The point is, the paperwork will usually show who had responsibility and what should have been done. After a serious crash, people naturally ask, was the driver impaired? Federal rules cover controlled substances and alcohol use and testing for CDL drivers, and the FMCSA points to 49 CFR Part 382 for those requirements. So what do we look for? Post-crash testing documentation, random testing program compliance, prior positive tests or refusals, clearinghouse-related compliance steps when applicable, company policies and enforcement records. If a company failed to follow testing requirements, that can be a serious safety breakdown. Now, let's talk about the evidence most people do not realize exists. Many commercial trucks have an event data recorder, often called a black box. This can capture things like speed, braking, throttle, and sometimes more. There may also be dash cameras, inward-facing cameras, and telematics systems. This data is powerful because it's subjective. If the company claims the driver was going the speed limit, but the data box says otherwise, the argument changes immediately. If the company claims the driver braked hard, but there is no meaningful braking record, we start asking why. At this point, you might be thinking, okay, but how do I actually get any of this? That is exactly why truck cases are different from car cases. A big early move in a truck case is sending a preservation letter, sometimes called a spoliation letter, to the carrier and insurers. The purpose is simple: preserve the log data, maintenance records, black box data, camera footage, dispatch communications, and the whole driver file. Because once evidence is lost, deleted, overwritten, or the truck is repaired, you are often fighting an uphill battle to create what happened. If the company refuses to cooperate, Formal legal tools like subpoenas and court orders can enforce production. And when we see missing records, too perfect records, or records that just appear altered, that becomes its own issue. First, blame shifting matters here. Mississippi's comparative negligence statute says contributory negligence does not bar recovery, but damages are diminished in proportion to the negligence attributed to the injured person. So if the trucking company can push, say, 20% of the blame onto you, the value of the case can drop in a very real way. Second, timing matters. Even if you think you have plenty of time, a common limitations period for actions not otherwise specified in Mississippi is 3 years, under Mississippi Code Section 15149. But do not confuse a lawsuit deadline with an evidence deadline. The evidence window is usually so much shorter. So, what should you do if you suspect the trucking company did not follow safety protocols? First, get medical care and follow up, even if you feel okay at first. 2. Make sure the crash is properly reported and documented. 3. Save what you have: photos, witness names, vehicle paperwork, and all your notes. 4. Be careful with your insurance calls. Give basic information, but do not guess and do not volunteer extra information. 5. Talk to an attorney who handles truck cases, because preserving evidence early can change everything. If you want to protect your case even more, your next step is to watch the video right here on the screen. 5 biggest mistakes people make after a car accident. Because those same mistakes, like delaying treatment, saying too much to the insurance company, and failing to document the scene, can hurt a truck case even faster. Click that next video now and make sure you do not accidentally hand the trucking company the advantage. See you there.